Okay, next up we have Sunstone Metals. Sunstone has an ASX code STM. The company has a market cap of approximately 42 million. Sunstone is a gold and copper exploration company with two world-class porphyry projects in Ecuador. The Bramaderos project in southern Ecuador is a major 10 million plus ounce opportunity and already has a 2.7 million mineral resource at the Brama Alba porphyry deposit. The company is now drilling the Limon discovery at Bramaderos, which is a high-grade at-surface deposit. The company's second project, El Parmar, is in northern Ecuador and is a similar large gold and copper porphyry development opportunity. Presenting for the company today, we have CEO and Managing Director, Patrick Duffy. Patrick, welcome to the network and please take it away.
Okay, thanks very much, Manny. Starting slide 3, two slides ahead. Good afternoon, everybody. As mentioned, I'm the new Managing Director at Sunstone Metals. I spent the last 4 or 5 years with Red 5. Many of you may know me from there. I joined when we were $60 million market cap back in 2019, and today it's a $1.5 billion company on the back of the success of the development of King of the Hills and about to merge with Silver Lake and become a $3 or $4 billion company. But I've joined Sunstone because I see the same potential, if not further upside, at our two world-class gold and copper porphyry projects at Bramaderos and at El Palmar, which are located in Ecuador. As mentioned, Bramaderos has an opportunity and exploration target of over 10 million ounces of copper, gold and silver across a number of porphyry systems. One of them already has a resource of 2.7 million ounces. We are cognizant it takes a lot of money and a lot of drilling to develop these porphyries, and we have a strategy at Bramaderos to develop a discovery called Limon, which has an exploration target of 1 to 1.5 million ounces, which we see as an initial high-grade at-surface development opportunity, which is to get into production, generate the revenue and the balance sheet to be able to develop these multi-decade porphyry opportunities at Bramaderos. In northern Ecuador, we have a similar opportunity at El Palmar, major copper gold porphyry system, and a pathway there for an open pit starting mine to then develop into a multi-decade system in the northern Ecuador. On the next slide, just an overview. So having joined in April, market cap's been positioned between $40 to $50 million. We've raised $4 million via placement and an entitlement offer, which gives me some runway to put the building blocks in place. We're now back drilling as of this week, and we'll start to see news flow coming from Limon in July, and a great opportunity now to get a position set in Sunstone. The next slide. Just looking at Bramaderos in more detail. So we fly down to a regional airport in southern Ecuador and then travel along the Pan American Highway for an hour to an hour and a half to get to our project site. That Pan American Highway goes from Alaska down to Chile, so a significant piece of infrastructure. The local communities are a small, sort of 200 or 300 people per township scattered along the highways, but we certainly have strong support from the communities. We don't need anyone that needs to be relocated. We don't have any tribal communities. We have access to water. There's no protected areas. It's a perfect postcode to be developing a large-scale mining centre. On the next slide. And should just note that we're connected to the grid, which in Ecuador is over 90% renewable energy. Most of it is hydropower, so very reliable power supply. You can see here that the concession we have in black, these porphyry targets, of which we've got an initial resource at Brama Alba, which is a large 2.7 million ounce resource that is open in all directions, and a number of complementary porphyries that over time we see being developed as a large single mining operation with a large central mill. However, as noted in the north, we have Limon, which is a different style of system. It's called an epithermal system. It's gold and silver at surface. We have a target there of 1 to 1.7 million ounces, and we've done 10,000 meters drilling already. And we're just about to restart drilling. We have restarted drilling at Limon. The next slide is just some visuals for you to appreciate these porphyries that you can see Brahma Alba in the top. They're at surface, so they're protruding, and these hills are fully mineralized gold, silver, copper, very easy to mine, low strip ratios, and you can see it's very dry. It only rains for 2 or 3 months of the year. And there's a number of these consecutive hills that make up these porphyry systems. And below is Limon, which is a large 1.7 kilometre by 1 kilometre area. You can see in the background there's the bare hills, nothing growing because of the heavy mineralisation, and full of silver and gold through these hills. On the next slide. We've done a lot of drilling already, focused on this central shoot at Limon, and have had some exceptional hits. So, for example, 240 metres at 1.3 grams, 200 metres at 3 grams through these areas, very wide zones, 125 metres, very suitable for bulk mining, and large high-grade zones in between that suggest over time can be developed as an underground also. And next slide, you can see we've been doing trenching in the last 6 months to identify new targets, and these trenches, which are 2 metres deep, can go as long as 150 metres, but we're seeing exceptional mineralisation just in these shallow trenches, which we've now started drilling below these trenches, where we've had consistently 3-4 gram hits at surface, and in some cases over 10 grams, and seeing visible gold at surface. So a lot of confidence in this next drilling campaign, and we'll start to see those results being reported in July. Moving on to El Palmar on the next slide, just an overview. Similar to Brahmaderos, there's no red flags, no sort of protected environmental areas, strong community support, very subsistence agriculture, a more tropical environment in the north, but sits on this Tuachi fault line with exceptional geology in this area. We just about 15 kilometres away is the Codelco Lurimago project, which is 1 billion tonnes of almost 1% copper. And further up the fault line is Cascabel, which is owned by SolGold. There's a world-class deep porphyry system. And we saw when the team evaluated El Palmar, they saw the same geological events that resulted in these other porphyry systems present at El Palmar. The next slide, you can see there's 5 porphyry gold copper centres here, and we've done a lot of soil work, arsenic work, magnetics to identify these targets, as well as drilling mostly focused on this T1 so far. On the next slide is a nice cross section. So 2 aspects here. One, you can see on the left, it's shaping up as a very nice open pit, and with more drilling, we expect to be able to establish an initial resource. But we can see that pit sort of producing 150 to 250,000 ounces of copper and gold, or gold equivalent, and that gives you the foundation then to be able to develop the deeper and other surface porphyry systems at El Palmar. And that gives us a significant advantage. If you look on the right, SolGold, which is quite a well-known deposit not far away, that has a capex requirement of $3 or $4 billion to be able to establish a deep block cave system to be able to get down 700 to 800 metres to develop the underground porphyry system. However, at El Palmar, we were able to get into an open pit situation, potentially $400 or $500 million of capital, but far more achievable for a company of our size. The next slide just shows a third concession. You can see it's very close to El Palmar. We've picked up partly as a very fertile area, but also in time to make it a contiguous concession, and it will have complementary areas for infrastructure for the mining development at El Palmar. And then next slide is, again, I'm sure everyone has picked up gold, copper, silver, 3 very hot metals at the moment. Gold continues to show its resilience the last couple of weeks when there's been some negative information, but all the factors that have contributed to gold reaching this point in the last 6 months around geopolitical factors, macroeconomic factors, we see going forward. And once interest rates start reducing later in the year in the US, gold will go even higher. We're quite convinced of that. Similarly with copper, it's an exceptional metal. It's, I think, consensus now across the world that there is a shortfall going forward of copper supply. Very few large-scale copper projects to be able to keep up with demand that we see present. And obviously very lucky to have two large-scale gold and copper porphyries in our portfolio. The final slide is just to reinforce where our priorities are. We're drilling at Limon, working towards establishing a resource at Limon in the next 12 months to complement the resources we have at Brama Alba, and looking to be able to fast-track the development of Limon as a stepping stone to a much bigger multi-decade system at Bramaderos, and similarly keep advancing El Palmar in the background. Back to you, Manny.
Patrick, thank you for that. It's always interesting to hear what's going on in that part of the world, and you've certainly got some very, very interesting projects there. They look very, very highly prospective at this stage. So, a couple of questions came in whilst you were going through the presentation. There is one here now. You've taken over the role of MD from Malcolm Norris recently, and the question is, are there going to be any changes in strategy or focus now that you've taken over the role of MD? Any likely changes, or are you going to pretty much go with what's already in place? Yeah,
look, so Malcolm is staying on as an executive director to continue to drive the exploration. And for those that know Malcolm, he has an exceptional career track record of discovering huge copper gold porphyry systems throughout the world, including in Ecuador. So I still will be leaning heavily on Malcolm to continue the discovery success at Sunstone. Probably my skill sets are more in the development and construction and operations. So we have complementary skill sets, and for me, the priority is to get Limon established as a high-grade resource and get that on a development pathway, and then continue to build up the porphyry stories both at Bramaderos and El Palmar over time.
Okay, understood.
And okay. If I can, I didn't mention. I think for me, a reference point. So at Limon, I can see it being a sort of 100 to 150,000 ounce per annum gold silver mine. A reference point there would be Capricorn in WA, or other similar size 100, 150,000 ounce gold mines. And those companies, single asset companies, are worth $1.5 billion today. So again, we're at $50 million market cap today, but there's huge upside in, one, first of all, getting Limon into production, and two, it being a stepping stone to a much bigger multi-decade mining centre at both Bramaderos and El Palmar.
Understood. Okay, let me go on to the next question, and this one, there's a couple, so perhaps we can answer, both of these in the same with the same answer. But the question is around the recent civil unrest that we've seen in Ecuador. It's been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately, but the question is really, can you comment a little bit on sovereign risk for mining companies in Ecuador at the moment, and specifically how those risks may apply or may impact Sunstone?
Yeah, no, good question, topical question. So I went there in April, and I must admit I was pleasantly surprised. It's very safe, very stable, very secure. We go to the airports, and I was probably expecting some fortresses, but it's like walking into Tullamarine or the Sydney airport. It's just normal. At our project sites, we have sort of one security guard employed each day to sort of track people coming in. So yeah, it's remarkably normal. And we saw in the news at the beginning of the year a blow up in security, particularly in the prisons, of which the government has sort of used that as a catalyst to address some of the sort of fundamental structural issues. And they've got the armies involved in the prisons, and all that has been put down, and they've managed to make a lot of progress in stabilizing the security situation. But yeah, just to emphasize it, it was remarkably normal when I went there. So there are two world-class mines in Ecuador, Fruta del Norte owned by Lundin and Mirador owned by a Chinese big copper porphyry project mine owned by the Chinese, but they've been very successful, built in the last 6-7 years and sort of set the benchmark for others to follow. And certainly this year, we're seeing a lot more activity with a number of corporate deals and a lot of also interest in Sunstone, given the nature of our scale of our projects.
Okay, understood. And just one quick question, staying on the sovereign issues. There is a question just asking whether or not you've had much in the way of engagement and perhaps protests from the Indigenous side.
Yeah.
Or you come across that.
Yeah, again, excellent question. So my background has included working, living in the Philippines and working, living in New Caledonia, developing big projects there and a lot of exposure with Indigenous communities. Fortunately, both our projects are nowhere near any sort of Indigenous lands. And we, again, they're perfect postcodes. I don't see any red flags on either project. And we don't, it's not an issue for Sunstone, fortunately.
Okay. And just to wrap it up, in terms of now you've been quite busy on the with the drill bit. What's the sort of news flow we can expect over the remainder of 2024 to come out in terms of results, drilling, etc.?
Yeah, so I expect a lot of momentum now. We've restarted drilling only this week, and results will start coming out sort of second half of July, I expect. But yeah, from this point forward, we expect a lot of good news. There's confidence in that drilling. We're drilling under those trenches that I highlighted and know where those systems are, and expecting a lot of good news flow for the rest of this year, working towards a resource next year for Le Mans.
Okay, understood. Patrick, thank you for your time today. That was great. And have a fabulous weekend, and we'll get you back soon for an update.